Hello and welcome back, everyone. Happy Thursday. Today we got really good news on three fronts. We have an amazing new system with a little bit of an asterisk. We also have what is looking like now the pure possibility of a drug run. For some time, because of the way substitution works, drug running has not been possible. Everyone tries to do it as the EIC in Persia. You see a lot of like YouTube videos like, I made the biggest drug empire. Now drug empires will be possible. And then finally, we also have the very most important thing, the very and critically most important thing. We have a happy Thursday. Incidentally, they've been holding out on us just so they could wish us a happy Thursday, because it looks like they finished this on a Monday, but it has been posted on a Thursday. Let me pay you Tuesday for the happiness of today, or let me say pay you Thursday for the happiness of Monday. But let's get into it. Enough waffling about. Let's get into what everyone's here for. Hello, Victorians. Okay, that's not a happy Thursday. My name is Alex. Well, we do trust Alex will give us a happy Thursday. I'm a multi-class programmer and designer on Victoria 3, and today it's finally time for another dev diary, and this very happy Thursday. Of course, he nails the landing because it is capitalized. As everyone knows, it is a holiday. Today we will be taking a look at diplomatic treaties, one of the features arriving with the free 1.9 update on June 17th. That's June 17th. Mark your calendars for June 17th when the update kind of arrives here, together with our mechanics pack called Charters of Commerce. Before we begin, though, I should mention that, look, moving GIF. I should mention that today is a public holiday. Of course, it's a Thursday. It's a happy Thursday. What do you mean? Obviously. In IG trade unions here for us in Sweden and in a lot of other places, this dev diary was, as usual, written ahead of time, you know, definitely on Monday. But when it comes to questions, this doesn't mean I won't be actually around to answer them when they come out because you're working hard. Instead, Martin will be around to answer some of your more pressing questions to begin with here, and I'll answer the remaining any important questions on Monday, as we will get tomorrow off as a bridge day. So, as one does. But to really, emotionally, every Thursday is a day off. With all that said, I should remind you that, as always, with any values text design, we get the disclaimer that we've read probably 100 times now. But without further ado, let's get into it. And this is treaties. And this, for me, represents, do we still get the animation? This for me represents a framework for something. But the little asterisk I have here is that we have a bunch of kind of frameworks that, in my opinion, are kind of like, it felt like we got something really, really big, but like the building blocks for it, and then the thing was like never delivered in its like full version. We had agitators, a little bit more has been delivered on agitators. We got, and it feels like to some degree, like we get these frameworks for these things, but they don't get fully completed. We got companies, although we did get an update to companies, and we are getting a further update to companies, so they are working on it. Here, I think that at the very least, the fact that we are going to have this system for trading multiple things with the AI or with each other that is dynamic and interesting in terms of the treaties is a huge step forward in diplomacy, but also the diplo play. The diplo play has been the thing I've been complaining about most, and so this looks like a partial movement towards solving the diplomatic play, because if there's a jockeying for position and a trading of resources that happens before a play, and there is a agreement between two powers, and probably or potentially the hardest thing about that is the AI, not some like UI for that, but now there is kind of a system by which you can be like, hey, you know what, I don't want you to go for that, I can give you maybe this instead, this type of thing, as the diplo play escalates, this sort of thing. So, very, very exciting there. But let's get into the diplomatic treaties. As part of the changes to the world's market as described in Dev Diary 143, and with trade routes as you know them going anyways, we wanted to introduce a new mechanic that will let you effectively establish pointed strategic ways of elevating your industries or exploiting other countries through trade. We wanted for more ways for you to peacefully but aggressively compete against your rivals and allies. Frenemies, if you will. That is the classic Victoria 3, or Victorian era relationship, and establish your dominance across the globes from enemies to lovers timeline. What? What? Okay. Initially, this was drafted to be relatively as simple as tit for tat deal. You give me grain, I give you coal. And here's the big nut here. The way that well, let's read the rest of this paragraph. But of course, we got thinking, in particular, in the context of how often the community asks for more in-depth diplomacy, which is always, we thought, what if we went, actually, the community wants one thing, and it's like rabid, and it's like, we want military changes. And this is what I want, like the diplomatic changes. Like the military, it's whatever. It's not what we're here for. Particularly in the context of how often community asks for diplomacy, we thought, what if we went a step or 2 or 20, and this is what it looks like, further and made it a full-blown system of treaties where you can weigh a bunch of different types of things against each other. This seems really hard to write the AI for. I'm assuming the AI for this will suck, because making the AI evaluate one thing versus a different thing is very, very difficult. Maybe to get to Prussia to get a Green Alliance, you can sweeten the deal by promising to give them a certain amount of weapons every week. And here is kind of the critical asymmetric trading that's just incredibly hard to balance. Because what if you just balloon up this enormous economy and you can just get alliances with all GPs by just dumping a ton of goods to them? Or maybe, say you'll pay off Hades' debt never, in exchange for them granting you investment rights. Well, that's what we did. You paid off Hades' debt in exchange for them granting you investment rights. Paradox is stepping up their game. I knew you made games, but I didn't know you had that type of game. Diplomatic treaties are a new way for you to interact with other countries diplomatically. They are, in a way, natural extension of what diplomatic actions and pacts currently in the game do, but more on that later. But instead of just having to propose one thing at a time in a vacuum, which isn't how treaties work, you can combine them and have the whole context of what you want to be available and weighed together. So here we have what is the thing that we're really excited about here, because if we make this framework, suddenly the notion of a diplomatic play that is nuanced and has a lead-up time and a jockeying of position, as in multiple stages of treaty negotiation and escalation of hostilities, then we get something that looks really interesting and nuanced to the diplomacy. But here we have Brazil, we have Bolivia. Brazil is offering money, goods per week, and in exchange, they want the state and they want a trade agreement. And I know what you're saying. Generalist, I thought you said something about drug money, and I get that we're around the cocaine location, but this isn't Colombia, and where are the drugs? Well, the problem with doing a drug run for some time has been the way that substitution works in game. The way that substitution works in game is proportional. It is not based on the price of anything. And so what I mean by that is when there's 100 units of opium in a market and 1,000 units of tobacco, the pops will consume at a 1:10 ratio opium to tobacco, regardless of price. They don't care about price. They consume based on the amount of sell orders in the market, which makes dumping a drug into someone's market very, very difficult, because what will happen is they will get the cheap drug, they won't consume it in a large enough portion to really drive up the price, and failing to drive up the price, they will not really increase the size of the route. And so whenever you're trying to dump consumer goods specifically that have substitutions available in the market you're dumping to, you will always get a lackluster response in terms of their buy order relative to the price differential between your two markets. Here's the nut. Here's where the drug run comes in. If you make them transfer you opium, your own opium, then you can make them buy it from you, because you can create the buy orders, right? And now, when they start buying a bunch of opium to fulfill the opium buy orders that they are giving back to you, they need to buy it from someone. And who do they come to? Little old drug dealer you. And so by making them give you a bunch of opium, they will now have to buy a bunch of opium. This shoots up the price on the market. And now, if they import 1,000 opium just to give it back to you, in addition to their tobacco, now their pops start consuming half opium. This collapses the price of the tobacco, but they don't care about prices. All they care about is proportion. And so now you can force everyone to eat your opium by forcing them to send it back to you. Yeah. And which incidentally is going to recollapse the price of your own market, such that you can send it out to someone else. So you're only going to have to collapse prices once, and then you're going to produce. Look, the opium that you're going to produce is going to feed the world, and you can make 1,000 opium, and you can send it out. It'll be like the national banking reserve, but with opium. You can make 1,000 opium, send it out to like 10 countries each, having them send you 1,000 opium back, and so the same 1,000 opium makes 10,000 opium. You pick it up what I'm putting down. It's called drug banking. But this is a very exciting development here. In short, the way it works is like this. You decide what you want to treaty with another country, so that you open the treaty draft panel shown in the animation above. You then select what articles you'd like to have, both offers and requests. When you're happy about the proposal in the country, you can then look at what you propose with either and accept or reject, of course, but they can choose to negotiate further. Negotiating further lets you tweak around the proposal however you want it and send it back to you. This is repeated until either you agree on a treaty or decide to just end the process. Assuming you sign the treaty, it is now in effect and remains in effect until either side withdraws from it. So we have like an actual negotiation diplomatic system. The big crux of all this is huge. The big crux of this is the nut, isn't it? This is how the big crux of the system is, of course, how the AI handles it. We want to make sure that you can't just scam the AI. Everyone remembers 1.5, huh? When they implemented reverse sways, and in exchange for defending Mosquito Kingdom, the UK would give you all of the crown jewel of the British Empire, the EIC. I remember. But we also want to make you feel like you're drafting clever treaties and making use of any advantages you might have. Like, let's say you're really good at making opium. You want them to send you your opium. That's how you do the drug run. In particular, we also want to feed into the fantasy of you being able to draft clearly unequal treaties with other countries, because maybe you are able to remind them that you have big boats and a big army next door. This is the implication for a future time in terms of improving the diplomatic play, but we don't see necessarily too much of that in this dev diary. These are all goals that we have in mind while working on balancing this feature. I thought they said balancing the future in terms of reading ahead, like while talking. But they said feature, but also the future. Before we go into Before we go into details of this a bit more, I want to specifically address something I know will come up in the comments. Are multilateral treaties possible? No. They're not possible. Womp womp. No, making the system support multilateral treaties would be on a completely different level of complexity and massive undertaking. Yeah. If nothing else, it would be immensely complicate the UX and require a completely different way of tracking AI, drafting, and all that. So unfortunately, it's not feasible. That, of course, isn't to say that we don't want multilateral treaties. They would be super cool, or a system that could build that on future builds. But for now, it's not something we are doing. However, what they could do is they have a diplomatic play. You have a diplomatic play targeting a certain person, and someone could approach you with a treaty regarding the diplomatic play. Let's say they want to side in on or support. So let's say you're playing Great Britain and you're taking Borneo or Brunei, as one does. And then France approaches you. You could have a treaty between you and France on whether or not they get involved in the Diplo play. Right? So you could still have a system that effectively allows for multilateral stuff. And in fact, this would just be more accurate because the Borneans would have nothing to say about it, and it would just be entirely between France and Great Britain. So really, that's more of a feature. But enough of this. Let's dive into the details. We have articles. This is the core part of the treaty that usually defines what they do. Articles have a few different classifications. On a fundamental level, articles can either be mutual or directional. This mostly just indicates whether an article is something that affects both sides equally or not. A prime example of a mutual article is an alliance. Both sides are involved equally. On the other hand, transfer goods is an example of a directional one. One side, the source, is sending the goods, and the other side, the target, is receiving them. You force them to send you your own drugs to increase buy orders, and then their pops consume the drugs. Yeah, and then they can't employ up the tobacco stuff, and then the tobacco sell orders fall, and then you've replaced all the tobacco with opium because you're a drug runner. The next important aspect of articles is inputs. Some articles have required inputs, others do not. Again, an alliance is just an alliance. You don't need to define anything, but the transfer goods, you need to specify which goods you want to transfer and how many. Okay, it requires some inputs. You transferred yourself your own opium. Or in the case of, well, that's as long as you can be the one selling the opium cheapest on the market, otherwise they might just get it from someone else, or they could produce it themselves, but a lot of countries can't produce opium. You could also be dumping a different thing like guns to everyone else and have them send it to you. If they send a bunch of guns to you in terms of agreements, then they will have to import a bunch from you, which is really good for one particular, event in Victory, but we won't get into that. Articles can have a different number of inputs, depending on what they're meant to do. What these articles are used for differs. It is up to the article to define. As for what articles you can expect in the game, other than the Articles of Confederation, dark times. A lot of them will be things moving over from the old diplomatic action system. This includes, of course, alliances and defensive pacts, but also straight transfer and joint power block if you own your own sphere of influence and investment rights. So now you can offer someone a bunch of stuff if you want to get in a particular thing. I wonder if we can lean on people to change their laws, because the biggest thing would be, man oh man, do we want Qing to open their borders and then join our block for getting a bunch of migration. Or they don't even need to join the block for the mass migrations, but for intermarket. For the majority of the articles that have counterparts as diplomatic actions, the corresponding diplomatic actions or pacts will be removed, and treaties will now be done in this way, the way through which you have access to them. Do note that not all diplomatic actions have been made into articles, only the ones that have made sense. This means that likely declare rivalry or improve relations will still work the way they're used to. Yeah, you can't negotiate whether or not someone wants to improve relations. We've taken the opportunity to rework treaty pacts ports by turning them into an article, or article instead of a consequence of geography. No treaty port. Wait, what? Rework treaty ports. Okay. Historical treaties aren't set up, so don't ignore this. This is also, incidentally, can you give people a treaty port so you can send them opium better? Bruh. No, probably not. But if you get a treaty port in them, you can send them opium better. The gears are turning here. But I didn't see this part when I was skimming through. That's kind of a big deal. And means that building a trade empire, whatever it's based around opium, will be quite a bit easier. In addition to those, we've come up with completely new articles coming in 1.9. One of them, Lino, titled the previous Dev Diary 145 Military Access. That Dev Diary went into detail about how military access works, so let's talk about the new article coming with 1.9, transit rights, which is going to let you play the Switzer Lake. If you wanted to do the struggle bus run, do it now before 1.9, because Switzerland's not going to be as bad as it was before. We have, if military access lets you march troops through a country, transit rights lets landlocked countries pass through a country to access the world market. Remember, you got to get the boats into the ocean. Who's going to carry them? Not me. This can be changed through multiple countries if needed. Switzerland stands can calm down. Don't calm down. You enjoyed the run because it was hard. Now it's easy. Switzer Lake, by the way, is an achievement, I think, in EU4, where you have to get 100 provinces and have none of them touching the coast. But continuing on, ending a treaty. A treaty ends... okay. That's all for the access? Well, the idea is Switzerland can access the market, even landlocked. And so now playing landlocked countries will be a lot more... feasible, although to some extent the really soft expansion spots are what you want, like being able to go into Brunei, and I suppose still with military access you can invade Brunei as Switzerland if you can find someone to lend you some boats. Just kidding, you can't. Yeah, the boats are the problem with Brunei specifically, but if you get military access through Austria, the Ottoman Empire, Egypt, if you draw a line all the way down to South Africa, I suppose you could still go for the South African states. That'd be quite the Could you imagine the Swiss army marching from Switzerland all the way to South Africa? I mean, it all connects if you can cross the Bosphorus Strait. Ending a treaty. A treaty ends when either side withdraws from the treaty. Easy. Of course, if you gave away Angola in exchange for Spain transferring a certain amount of money every week, womp womp, you want to make sure that they actually follow through and you don't get scammed. Yeah. This is where binding periods come in. When signing a treaty, you also define for how long the treaty will be binding. When binding duration for the treaty lapses, either side can end the treaty at any point without consequences. We're still looking at a draft alternative. How the binding period. You can still end a treaty before the binding period ends, of course, but then you would be in breach of the treaty and subject to heavy penalties depending on the articles presented in the treaty. I'm curious to see what the penalties might be. I assume one of them is going to be infamy. Renegotiation. Okay. If you made some poor choices, we did, and a treaty is really not good for you, you can attempt to renegotiate the treaty instead of just withdrawing from it. To do so, you can select what treaty you want to negotiate and simply click on the button. This will bring you to a flow similar to the original drafting panel, but instead of having a blank state, the existing articles will be the baseline. From there, you can add or remove articles, change inputs, or even the binding period. When you're happy, you can send the proposal to the other side and give them the opportunity to respond. If they agree, great. The old treaty is replaced with the new one. If they reject, though, the old treaty remains in force as it was. Okay. We have 15 years. Money transfer for military assistance. If you can get people to give you military assistance is kind of worth a lot and would allow you to do... Military assistance decreases the price of your... Oh, you probably still have to fill the criteria for military assistance. But if this overrides the need to fill the criteria, it decreases the cost of buy orders for military goods for you. It decreases the price of the buy orders that the government pays, minus mil goods cost. But it doesn't decrease the price that gets paid on them. So what you can do is if you stack enough of them, you can get free military goods while still stimulating all the military industries in your country. We've gone over this so many times. It's a dream, a fever dream, but it might be possible if you can get a bunch of people to give you military assistance that doesn't require them being smaller than you, bigger than you, then you can build up the military-industrial complex. And by locking it in terms of the bound for X years, if that locks it in, even despite them not technically being able to send you military rights, the military assistance, it might be possible. In addition to the drug run, of course. It's worth noting that some articles are not negotiable. This mainly applies to articles that have some kind of immediate effect upon signing, like transferring a state, because you can't undo that simply by changing the terms somewhat. No, you cannot. Non-fulfillment consequences. So you are playing as Belgium and you need paper, but you don't feel like actually making it yourself. You could set up a treaty where you give the Netherlands some of your sulfur in exchange, they give you some paper they produce. They agree to this, but for whatever reason, say a foreign power annexed your only paper mills. Wow. If you're starting as Belgium and someone annexes one of your two states and you just start over. But let's continue with this hypothetical. They are not able to produce the paper that they should deliver to you. This would likely lead to a shortage of paper in the Dutch market, which would mean they would not be able to deliver paper to you. Oh wait, annex their paper mills. Womp womp. If you're playing as Belgium, you don't care if the AI loses their paper mill. In such a case, the Netherlands would be considered in non-fulfillment on their treaty. When this happens, generally one of two things will happen if the article is not being fulfilled. If it's a serious breach, like not answering the call of an alliance, they will break the whole treaty, and the party at fault will receive all the penalties tied to withdrawal early if the treaty is still binding. Yeah. Never pull out too early. For less serious breaches, though, like with those happen above, what happens is the other side of the treaty will still be inactive until the breach is addressed, at which point the treaty resumes as usual. If Netherlands stopped receiving paper because they had a shortage due to not producing it, Belgium would be able to stop delivering sulfur in return as well. This would then hold on until paper deliveries resume. But what if they need the sulfur to make the paper? Okay, if there are any other articles on Belgium's side, including mutual alliance, those would also be inactivated for as long as there's a fulfillment. That is sweet. Including mutual articles. Sorry, it didn't even say alliance, but that implies alliance. So the alliance, you can turn it off by being in breach of contract. So what if you... what if you want to turn the alliance off, so you just shut down your paper mills? I mean, that's like too much. That's a bridge too far, right? That's amusing, though. The side isn't fulfilling one of their articles stays active, though. The side that isn't fulfilling one of their articles stays active. Just kidding, womp womp. You still have to support them in terms of the treaty. That'd be funny if you could turn off the alliance. They're going to have one-way alliances if you can't fulfill the treaty? That's interesting. Finally, that seems abusable. Finally, I'd like to note that all articles will be non-fulfillable. Not all articles will be non-fulfillable. For some articles, like investment rights, you can't just not fulfill it. It just happens anyways. Yeah, this makes sense. And now obligations. Probably going to be a lot more useful. As usual, you can call on obligations to make a country more likely to accept a treaty you propose. When it comes to how you get those obligations, we're making some changes, though. Broadly speaking, you will be able to say, consider a certain treaty as essentially a favor for one side. This will reduce their acceptance, but in turn, as a binding period of the treaty lapses, everyone fulfills their parts, it will grant you an obligation that you can then use as usual. So getting an obligation for giving free stuff, and perhaps it's free stuff, but maybe it's free stuff. Maybe you send them the opium to begin with for free, for an obligation, so that then you can have an agreement where they send you back the opium, making it so that there's a maximum amount of buy orders possible in their market. You see where I'm going with this? Signed treaties will take on different names depending on circumstances. There will also be some historical treaties scripted with their historic names. Additionally, you will be able to give your own treaties a custom name if you so wish. Shout out. We get a shout out. Shout out to shouting out. Shout out to the default window line 2. It was the best of agreements. It was the worst of agreements. Default window line 2. Modding. This is going to be, as always, kind of exciting for modding. This is something we know a little bit less about, but let's go through it anyways. As always, we have made an active effort to keep this feature as moddable as possible. Many times when thinking about how to solve certain problems, we could think of an easy solution that would work within the assumptions of what we had planned to do with the feature, and a more complicated solution where making things work on a more abstract level meant more contributions were possible for modders, and as much as possible, we chose the latter. As such, I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about what you can do with the system, primarily centered around modding articles. A lot of article modding is similar to diplomatic action modding. You can set AI weights, modifiers, effects, costs, and so on. I am super excited for... Someone's going to cook up an AI that's way better than vanilla when it comes to agreements, and that's probably going to be a lot more fun and nuanced to play with. But let's continue on. What is a bit different here is how articles work, is that you are able to set if an article would be mutual, directional, or more importantly, you can have the article take any combination of the following inputs, although only one of each. Quantity, goods, building type, law type. We're forcing China to open its borders. We're getting free pops. Even if we're playing tall, we don't have to conquer China anymore, but we probably still will. Strategic region, country, state, and company. You can then reference these inputs in the immediate effect of the article you want to see. That can be done in an effect block. This is beyond the scope of what I can really cover. There are, of course, some significant parts of the articles that are hard-coded, but we tried to make them flexible in that. For instance, the most vanilla articles work by setting behavior flags, so transfer goods. So transfer goods has a transfer goods flag, then it tells the code what behavior it should call, and makes it take in the expected inputs that its transfer inputs requires. So it creates, this is my understanding of how this works, is it creates, if you transfer something from someone, it creates the government creates buy orders so that they can transfer it. So they can transfer your opium back. There's also to say investment rights or an alliance. And the cool thing here is that you can actually, to some degree, combine these. So if you want to make an article that grants both military access and transit rights at the same time, you can do that. The main limitation here is that you have two flags that look at the same input type. They will have to use the same input. So combining transfer goods with no tariffs would not necessarily both target the same input. Okay. You definitely do want to delete the tariffs on the goods. Specifically, what you want is a trade agreement alongside whatever agreement you have with them sending you back your opium. That way, you can make sure that they buy it from you, so they can get it most cheaply from you. So they have to buy it from you to sell to you. It's like... I really hope you can do this, where you just have like 1,000 opium that is being transferred around the world, like 15,000 times, and everyone's just ramping up the buy orders in terms of the pop's consumption for opium because it's proportional and not based on price. Because if you have a bunch of sell orders, your pops consume a lot more of that. Another cool thing you could do is mod the non-fulfillment conditions. You could, for instance, have a version of the transfer goods that is only active while the countries are at peace, or something that is broken maybe if you want the treaty to auto-break, or maybe if you want it to freeze up instead. Up to you. Interesting. Transfer goods that is only active when the countries are at peace? Bruh. That'd be so sweet if you could make agreements to send people guns while you're at peace, and then the deal just shuts off when you're at war. That'd be like the freest. That'd be actively good for you. That'd be very nice. Charters of Commerce. Well, everything I've described so far will be part of the 1.9 update. The Mechanics Pact Charters of Commerce will also include a number of articles exclusive to it. No tariffs on goods. This country is not allowed to set tariffs on specific input goods when trading with the world market, like opium. No subventions on goods. This country is not allowed to set subventions on a specific good when trading on the world market. We haven't heard about subventions, I don't think. We'll hear about it later. Prohibit the trade of a good with the world market. This country is not allowed to trade a specific input good with the world market. You stop other people from selling opium, so you could be the only one. Law commit. If you can actually do that, if you can be the only one, and they have to fulfill those sell orders because they have to send you back your opium, you could actually pump the price of opium up so high. That's going to be unreal. Law commitment. This country commits to passing a specific law. As long as they don't, their society is not fulfilled, and the other side of the treaty is inactive. Okay. So, in the case of China, opening the market. Non-colonization agreement. This country is not allowed to colonize a specific region. This one will be cool for our peers to get people to not interfere with the portions of Africa you want them to. I wonder if you can do this at Game Start with the Great Britain for Kenya. Because Kenya is really important. If they settle Kenya, they snake out and they settle a bunch of stuff. And Kenya allows you access to most of the non-Quinine oriented land that's available at Game Start. If you can be like, bruh, don't settle Kenya, trust, babe. Trust. That'll be good for you. Grant monopoly to a foreign company. Tune in the next Dav Diary where Lino will talk more about this. Unfortunately, that's in 2 weeks, not next week. We have a happy list Thursday, but we are excited it will be Lino. Portugal would really like to be left alone in their colonies. With their colonies, yeah, they would. We do see non-colonization agreement in Congo in exchange for Senegal. And so what you could do is maybe you could just agree not to settle what is the Hero Land and Namaqualand or whatever, those two areas that aren't that valuable, and then Great Britain won't settle Kenya. This is an example of difficulty in, making the AI do stuff. I feel like there's something I forgot to mention. Just one more thing. One more thing. There's one more thing I'd like to show before we end this all. In addition to the flow we already explained above, there's another way treaties can be used. Diplomatic plays. Oh, are we actually seeing this? I didn't see this when we skimmed over it. In 1.9, as part of the free update, we're expecting a new war goal to enforce. Enforce treaty article. This war goal lets you select between a number of articles that are specifically classified in script as enforceable. You can then select this war goal with multiple times targeting different articles. Then, at the end of the war, all instances of the war goal against the same country will result in a war reparations treaty against that country. This treaty, being enforced, cannot be withdrawn from. All instances of the war goal of a country will result in a war reparations treaty. Okay, so the war reparations is not just going to be gold, it's going to be, you can't settle Kenya. That is exciting. What this means is that on a base level, you can have war reparations work as they used to, but if you prefer, as part of the war reparations, you can instead demand getting investment rights in the country in question, or you can prohibit them from trading weapons and artillery on the world market, or you can make them send you your opium, or you can mod in some other article we haven't thought about yet, and do that instead, or all of the above. That is exciting, that you will be able to enforce diplomatic agreements. I assume they just break it in 5 years, but that's still super cool. Alright, but that's actually all I had to show you today. It would be cool if they broke it, if that resulted in them having to launch a diploplay against you to break the negative treaty. Alright, that was, alright, now that's actually all I had to show today. I hope you're excited about all this. Are we going to get the Happy Thursday sandwich? This is the real question. Everyone knows that happy salutations belong with a happy at the beginning and a happy at the end to form a sandwich. I hope you're all excited about this as I have been to tell you about it. It's been a whole journey to work on it, and finally some awesome to get to share it with you all. Let me know what you think. Are there any article combinations you're particularly excited about? Drug running. And for the modders out there, have you had the modded gears started turning already? They have. They never stop. I'm very much looking forward to talking to modders. They never stop. Seeing what clever treaties you all come up with, and hear about the backstabbing MP when 1.9 releases on June 19th. Or sorry, 17th. That's June 17th, not 19th. Before that, though, Lino will be back in 2 weeks and to tell you about what we've been cooking up with companies and executives. So we are going to see more company stuff, and also this seems like more agitator stuff. So we're seeing kind of, to some extent, some stuff maybe coming full circle, where we've had features that haven't really been fully fleshed out with when we get the framework for it, and now some of those are coming back to roost, in particular in this patch, which leaves me kind of excited for just these agreements in general, because it's exciting to see some of these be part of the diploplay and that you can enforce them, but I really do want to see the diploplay reworked, and this to be the framework by which you can jockey for position in the diploplay is extremely exciting for me. But also, it's probably going to be some time before we see the diploplay reworked, especially because it wasn't in their timeline at all in terms of a features rework for the rest of the year. I think it's just flavor. But until then, we do have this. We are on May 1st. Shout out to you. And we will be seeing on May 15th company charters, and then prestige goods, other changes, and then the changelog on June 12th, before on June 17th the release of the game. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and do the YouTube algorithm thing. And other than that, have a happy Thursday.